So I love fishing. I love all types of different fishing. I love fishing off the rocks. For those of you who don't know me about what I do, and I like to go fishing outside of kite fishing, rock fishing is probably my first love. I'm really passionate about lure fishing. I love fishing for blackfish and pelagic, especially in summer. But when it comes to lure fishing, I've really learnt to hone my skills on fishing out of a kayak and fishing for bream. And I really love doing these tournaments that Hobie support and have been supporting now for quite a long time. 4 years ago was the last tournament here, 2019, which I was lucky enough to win. I had an unbelievable experience fishing that tournament. It was like when everything sort of came together, and sort of some of you are probably wondering, well, if you've listened to Andrew's podcast, I'm going to get this right here, the Bream Fishing Project.
That's it.
So Andrew, thanks for all that you do, Andrew. I know that a lot of people here, if not everyone, probably listens to it, and we're really grateful for all the hard work that you put into just sharing your knowledge, but also, enabling other anglers, boaters, kayakers to share their knowledge about bream fishing and tournament fishing in general. But anyway, going back to that tournament 4 years ago, it's crazy. I think we've had a couple of tournaments lined up here, but through one reason or another, we haven't been able to do it. But here we are again. I'm pumped about it. I hope you guys are pumped about it. It's going to be really awesome, I reckon, the next couple of days. Probably tougher this time of the year than it was last time, which was in the end of March, beginning of April. I think that's when it's really fun. There's still a bit of a summertime pattern going on that time of the year because you've got some warm days. The water's still pretty warm. In fact, the water's probably warmer in the estuary in sort of March, April than it is any other time of the year. But it's gotten cooler. I think the water, I don't know if anyone can tell me, I wasn't on the water today for the pre-fish. 12 and a half? In anywhere sort of you went, was it, Josh? 12 and a half?
Mostly, yeah, 12 and a half to 13.
Yeah, okay. So last week I went out, no, not last week, 2 weeks ago. I better not have been out last week, I'd be in big trouble. I almost put my foot in it. 2 weeks ago I had a fish, and I think it was like, I'm sure it was like 16 or 17. And so it's dropped like significantly. To me, that says that the fish are going to be going deeper, generally speaking. Clear days over the next 2 days. I suspect that it'll be a really, really good boat hole bite for those of you that like to fish boat holes. I think that'll work really, really well. But I think the fish are generally going to be down deeper. But going back to 2019, what did I do? How did I win that tournament? In every tournament that I go into, I try to do my best. I love competing. I'm sort of more competing against myself than I am everyone else. I just like to do my best. And so I've spent a bit of time, or most of my time, in, as you're probably aware from different social media forms, I went to Cogger Bay. And everything worked out that day. The fish were good. The fish were schooled up in there. They were spread out, but they were good quality fish. So I was fishing. Mostly, I always generally try and fish a lot on the bottom. I've said this before many times. I love fishing structure hard to the bottom, especially vertical structure. I've caught a lot of big fish over the last 10 years, especially since living in Lane Cove. That's my local, and I just really love fishing vertical structure hard to the bottom. This time of the year, you can't go wrong. If you see something vertical in the water over the next couple of days and you go by it and don't fish it, you're mad. Because I reckon that's where the big fish are going to be. Whether it's a bridge pylon, a pole, a deep jetty in 3 to 4 metres is where I'm thinking it's going to be at. If you go past that and you don't fish it, I think you need to reconsider what you're doing just to make the most out of all your opportunity. But that 2019, I was probably fishing a little tiny bit shallower than that because the water was warmer. So I was fishing boat holes, and I was fishing some sort of mud flats, and that's where I got that really big fish, like 1.57 kilos. That was a bit lucky. There's always an element of luck in fishing. I had good fish that tournament. The first day I had about 2.67 kilos, probably 3 900 grammers, which is an awesome day's fishing. But the next day, I only had a 34, I think I started off with 328 tippers, upgraded one to a 34, then I had 2 34 tippers, that is, and I got lucky, I got a 39, which was sort of similar to the size fish that I got the day before. All fishing mostly Pro Lure live yabbies on 128s on the boat holes, or the Pro Lure motor or grub on a 1/12 jig head. Whether it's 1 metre or it's 4 metres, I'm fishing 1/12. I love it when it's going hard into the bottom, grinding away at the sand, the mud and all that sort of stuff. I reckon it gets the fish's attention and it gets them a bit more aggressive. And so yeah, and then I said I got really lucky that day. I was fishing. You've probably heard I was fishing with Glennie Allen. We were probably from here, say Josh apart. We were having a good chat, and we just fishing vibes at the back of the Cogra. And yeah, I got lucky and I picked up a really, really good fish, which was the biggest fish of the tournament. And of course, that was the difference between me coming second, I've got no doubt, and me winning the tournament. Because before that, when I was speaking to Glennie, he had a really, really good bag, and he had me covered, I reckon, every day of the week. But going back to what is going to happen over the next couple of days for me, and my personal experience, and what I'm going to do, and what I think is going to happen best for me, I'm going to fish. If you're anywhere between the start launch and Captain Cook Bridge, you will probably see me there. I'll be in that main river. I'm looking for current flow. I'm looking for 3 to 4 metres for me of deep structure, and I'll be fishing mostly plastics for most of the weekend. Scented plastics, I throw my plastics scented with usually a combination of S Factor and the Pro Cure scent. Sometimes I'll sort of just rub them on and sort of mix them together. I find that the Pro Cure is a bit more viscous. It's in the sense that it sort of, probably not the right word, but it sort of releases off the lure more readily, whereas the S Factor or even the Berkeley, the Gold is really good too, the gel. That sort of sticks to the lure a bit better. I don't know, maybe it's a bit of a superstition, but that's what I like to do when I'm throwing plastics. They'll be really, really well scented, but hard bodies too, and blades. I would do the same thing. I sent everything. I was talking to Dougie Baker before we started tonight, and he was asking me about that, and that's what I do. I will send everything up that I throw, especially this time of the year. The fish they're going to be sort of like mooching on the bottom. They're going to be starting, they'll be starting to school up now, well and truly. If they haven't, I don't know who thinks they would have been on a spawn run. Has anyone got any ideas about the spawn run this time of the year? Is it probably about now? Maybe the next.
Yeah, now later.
So yeah, I was thinking it would be sort of now. If you go further north, it's probably another month away, but they'll be schooling up, and I think they'll be on the bottom. In terms of the lures that I'm going to use tomorrow, I'll be throwing mostly, 2 weeks ago I did this and sort of found a little bit of a pattern on the Pro Lure Live Yabby Pearl Green 1/28 hidden weight TT jig head, scented up really, really well. The pattern I found was not so much to do with the lure as opposed it was to the count. So I don't know if you guys do this, but when I was throwing the lure in and into any structure or even on a flat or a weed bed or whatever, I would count. As soon as that lure hit the water, I'm counting and I'm looking for the bite. And I found that in the 11 to 12 second mark, every time, 2 weeks ago, that's when the fish bit the lure. It does change a little bit, but that's a pattern that I found. So it wasn't so much necessarily just to do with the lure, there was other things involved in it as well. So I don't know if you guys try and find patterns like that, but that's something worth thinking about when you're having a fish tomorrow, thinking about patterns, not just the type of lure or what they're eating, but how long it's taking them to bite the lure. There is definitely something worth looking at there, I think. I'll have a crankbait tied on, a deep crank, Pro Lure D36 in violet and violet shrimp, and I'll have a Pro Lure S36 probably in combat, and I'll have matte black there because they're the two colours I like to throw in this particular estuary system, and I'll be just slow rolling them, a bit like Camden Haven River Chris, the slow rolling. I was saying, I just slow rolling at the back of the weed beds there. I'll do the same thing all the time. I don't really jerk and twitch much with crankbaits. I'm pretty plain Jane when it comes to what I do with cranks. And hello, welcome. And so that's what I'll be doing. But I won't probably throw crankbaits tomorrow unless the wind picks up. If the wind picks up and I can see a wind-blown edge, it doesn't matter. I've been in the basin. It's been dead as a doornail. I've not seen a fish all day. At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, southeast or whatever comes through, you find a wind-blown bank, and in the middle of August, you've had nothing in your bag all day and you start hooking fish. And it will happen in shallow water. Whether it's 1 foot, 2 metres, they'll bite for that reason. So that's the only reason I'll throw a crankbait. I'll have a vibe tied on tomorrow, so I'll have a V35, matte brown, matte black, in the Pro Lure range, but they all work really well here, whether you throw Pro Lure, whether you throw Eco Gear or Daiwa, they'll all work really, really well. And the other thing I'll probably have tied on right from the beginning, as I always do, is a motor or grub, 1/12 jig head, number 2 size hook, TT. It's not hidden weight, just a standard jig head that I'll be throwing in anywhere from 1 foot of water to that, like I said, that sort of 3 to 4 meters max out. I'm not comfortable fishing deep, and so even though I think that tomorrow the fish will be a little bit deeper, I think I'll be okay in the 3 to 4 meter mark tomorrow. That's what I'll be doing. But I'll always be throwing that lure on that weight jig head wherever I go in any system. It just works for me. I've had a lot of experience catching a lot of fish. And then other lures, I think that's probably pretty much covers me. I'll have it, so Pearl Green Live Yabby 128, Motor Oil Grub 112. I will have a crankbait tied on, S36, I'll change it over to a D36, and I'll have a vibe. That'll be my go-to tomorrow. But plastics will be 90% of my day tomorrow. Scented, weighted plastics on the bottom. Boat holes, mooring block and keel, depending on the type of boat hole that I'm throwing at. That's what I'm fishing for. And then main river, jetties, poles on jetties. So when jetties are coming out off the bank, I'm looking for that, you know, I'll work it out. Like if they're biting in less than a metre, they are. That can sometimes happen, but I'll be looking for that 2 to 4 metre mark in the main current. I find the better fish will bite in main current. This might be my experience on my local in Lane Cove, but also here in the George River and any other system I've fished. So that's what I'll be doing. And I'm absolutely pumped for tomorrow. I've got no expectation. My pre-fish 2 weeks ago was, I would say, very, very average. I think the biggest fish I caught was a 31 tipper. I got smoked twice, but other than that, I caught 6 fish. That's what we met up there, didn't we? We sort of, and like, yeah, my experience was pretty average, but it was average last time the comp was here, and the fishing comp day turned out to be awesome for me. So I have high expectations that someone tomorrow will get a very, very, very big fish, and I'm not sure who that's going to be, but I think there'll be some very big fish caught tomorrow, sort of between the 1.2 to 1.6 kilo mark. I don't know if there'll be heaps, but they will be caught. And I'm going to make a prediction. I think between 4.2 and 4.6 kilos will win this comp, is my prediction. It sounds, you might think I'm a bit short. I don't know what your experiences were today, but to get bigger than that, you've got to consistently be catching bigger fish the whole time. If you look back in 2014, when the comp was here last in this time of the year, I don't know if you've been doing your research and you've had a look at when the comps have been here and if there've been any in June. The winner was Jason Reed. Got an average bag, I think, on the first day. Second day, he smashed it. It was qualified for the Worlds, I think, if I'm right. And Simon Morley came in second. They're both fishing Woolooware Bay. But I think that bag weight was maybe 3.89. It was less than 4 kilos to win that tournament, to get qualification for the Worlds, qualification for the Hobie Grand Final. I think if you can get around that 4 kilo mark tomorrow, over the next 2 days, I think you're going to be in very, very good stead for a very, very good placing with 100 competitors. It's going to be unreal. It's going to be awesome. I think everyone's going to have heaps of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to hearing about people's experiences on the water and what, how they catch their fish and where they catch their fish, if they're willing to give up that information. Maybe not. But yeah, and of course, where it comes to Pro Lure and my experience with Pro Lure, I've been with Pro Lure and ambassador for Pro Lure now since 2000 and say about 12. I met Heath McGeechee, who's the director of Pro Lure, back in a tackle shop. Back then, and he was his first tackle shop he walked into. He'd never been into any other tackle shop, and he was talking to the guy that owned the shop there, and he said, "Oh, this is Luke. He likes to fish with Bream. Why don't you, have a chat with him? He might be able to throw some in products." I had no level of commitment at the time to Pro Lure, but I said I'd do it for him, and so I said, "Yeah, I'll wear a cap for you, and I'll, in the tournaments." And one thing led to another, and of course, some other people joined the team, and Pro Lure has gone from leaps and bounds since 2012, with both in range and quality of the products. I mean, I don't know if everyone here or some people here are using Pro Lure products, but the range is unbelievable. And that goes for all of the sponsors for the Hobie series. I mean, there are heaps of sponsors and lure sponsors. I won't name them specifically only because I'll miss out someone. I don't want to miss anyone out. But there are heaps of sponsors. Some of you are sponsored by them. They all are producing amazing lures. So thank you to all the sponsors of the Hobie series, all the lure sponsors and all the fishing gear sponsors, because the products that we get to use are just getting better and better. And we're really lucky. We're in a really good time to be seeing stuff come onto the market that's new. I think I've said maybe at Camden Haven and on social media that Pro Lure have some really exciting stuff coming up towards the back end of the year. We're just waiting on a few things to come through, technical things, but it's really exciting times for Pro Lure, really exciting time for, I think, the fishing fraternity in general, for what's going to happen later on in the year. I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen. I think it's going to be amazing. I thought now, rather than me just keep going on, I thought I'd offer the opportunity if anyone sort of had any questions that you wanted to fire away at me about anything at all. I'll try my best to answer as honestly as possible. I'll tell the truth. It's all good. But yeah, if you've got any questions, I'd love to, answer any questions about what you've got in mind.
I'll kick it off, Luke. So when you're fishing with your 112 and you grub and things like that, and you're targeting the structure of, say, the main river, in that 2 to 4 metre range.
Yeah.
When you're presenting your lure to that structure, how far are you going beyond the structure and letting it come back to it, or literally tied to the structure?
Yeah, that's a really, really awesome question. That bin there, I'm going to use that as a perfect example. I'm usually further away. If that's a pole, I'm usually further away in my kayak than that. I am casting, if it's a medium sort of tide, the current's not too fast, I'm casting to where Johnny's standing, a bit beyond, and making sure that I know the depth and how quickly that lure is going to sink to the bottom. I am making sure, and I shouldn't say that word, it's good to try and make sure that when that lure has landed on the bottom, it has landed on the bottom before here, because the fish is sitting here. And when that lure comes past here, it's going back in again. Those big fish don't get that big for no reason. They kind of keep themselves safe and eat at the same time. It's not easy to do, but there's big fish, that you catch that are over a kilo. What, a 40 centimetre fish, what are they, like they say about 30 years old or something like that? Is that about right? I mean, they've gone through nets, fishing hooks, they're lucky these days they get released, but you know what I mean? Like, they are hard on that structure right behind it, and they're not moving very far to get that lure. If you're casting into, generally, this is a generalisation I guess, but if you're casting and the current's coming towards you and you're in front, I think you're missing out. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
But I'm going past, and if the faster the current, the further I'm throwing behind the structure. Yeah.
Leaders and or straight through, what's your go-to?
Chris, I was sitting up last night. I didn't get to bed until 12 because I've been very, very time poor with work, and I was like, what am I going to tie in? Because I struggled 2 weeks ago. I fished 2 6-pound 2 weeks ago and 2 4-pound. I got most of my bites on 4-pound, and when I did get a bite, I lost a fish. I was on 4-pound. What am I going to do? Tomorrow I've got a straight through 4-pound. I've got 3 rods, other rods with 4-pound braid, 4-pound leader. All my leader is Rock FC, Sunline Rock FC, and I've got 1 on 8-pound. And I've only got that there because there are spots where I lost fish a couple of weeks ago, 2 fish, where it was hard on structure, it was pretty shallow. I thought, I'm going to throw at them, but I'm going to have 1 chuck first with a heavier leader, just so I can try and have half a chance. And if I decide to venture to Woolooware tomorrow, and there is the chance that I could do that, if everywhere else in the main river is fishing slow, I'll have it already tied on. I don't want to be tying on in my kayak. I want my leaders ready to go. I didn't go 6-pound. I normally do. I normally have 2 6-pound, but no, I've gone 4-pound straight through, 3 other 4-pound braid, 4-pound leader. I think it's like 10-pound braid, 8-pound leader on my other rod. And that's a heavier rod, 6 to 10-pound, Daiwa Luvius. Most of my rods, I think all my rods are Daiwa. Yeah, so yeah, Daiwa Luvius. I've got a short bite. Has anyone heard of the short bite? Has anyone got a short bite? Blue rod, Daiwa, 6'10".
I bought them in early 2000s.
6 to 10-pound.
Yeah, they were originally made as a sea bass rod.
Yeah, jigging rod.
Chucking stick baits.
That's my crankbait rod. Such a good rod.
Really popular in the early 2000s.
They are the best. And I've got a Daiwa Heartland, Sigyaki. Anyone got one? My favourite rod of all my rods I've got, 6'10". I catch everything on it. I don't crankbait on that rod, but I catch everything on that rod. It's my plastic rod and everything else in between. Questions? Any other questions? Awesome.
Everyone's very confident tonight.
Yeah? For sure, for sure.
Yeah, all very, very scared of you.
I can honestly tell you I've had hard idea fishing. The fishing I have had on my local's been okay. I had had a couple of really good sessions on my local, but I haven't been able to get here to the George River. Even though I'm not too far away, I'm probably only Lane Cove. It's probably in no traffic, maybe 35 minutes. But I just time ball. So.
One final thing, I think the event that you did take down, I think we had quite a bit of rain
Oh yeah.
prior to that event, and I think if my memory's correct, you did target some of those drains.
100%.
Obviously, we haven't had that rain this time round. The water is cooler. It probably makes sense that they are going to be a little deeper and not looking at that food source.
Does anyone know Cogra Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you know Cogra Bay, at the very, very back, there's a boat ramp, and then there's a soccer field, and there's a drain at the back, and then halfway along before you get to the boats, there's another drain that comes in the middle. All of my fish in that comp were caught from the last 10 boats to the back of the bay. Every one of them. And I reckon it was because of those drains. I don't know. Andrew, correct me, where's Andrew? He's gone, has he? Oh yeah, more important than me, I see. Yeah. Okay. No, but I think Andrew said, and I don't know if anyone recalls this, but he said that 2 weeks prior to that tournament, the fishing upriver was amazing. And no joke, 2 weeks before that tournament, there was at least 200 to 300 mil of rain. And I made a point of that because Cogra Bay, the back of the bay, it's really good or it's really bad. And I find when there's not been raining and it's crystal clear and it's flat, it's clear, it's tough. Really, really hard. I don't know if anyone else had the same experience as me. That's been my experience there. But yeah, the rain for me on that tournament made a big difference, and that's why I guess for me, Chris, this weekend, there's been no rain. It's been dry. The weather pattern's changed. It's dry. I think the fish. I really do think the fish are going to be much deeper. I think is anyone? I'm sure there must be like a handful of people that tomorrow have got their mind solely on crab pattern on the bridges. If you,
There's going to be snooker guys down there.
yeah, and they're going to do really well. But what they'll do, because it'll recycle, because there's good current on the bridges, they're going to recycle. So, 10 guys might fish in both days and do really, really well on the bridges. They'll probably they'll average, and I really think this. They'll probably average there'll be good 700 to 800 gram fish on the bridges all day, both days, recycling through. If you had a bridge plan, I'm really sorry if I'm stuffing that up for you. It's just been my experience there this time of the year. That's how it works. I will be at the bridges myself. So,
do you think tides? It was got to quite a low tide today, and it's a sort of a medium high tide tomorrow. How much will that affect things?
I think there are people here that know more about that than me. I've been wondering about that myself because I've thought sometimes, does anyone struggle after a high tide night, full moon? Yeah, I struggle, especially in shallow water, because I think the fish, they can see, like when it's full moon, like it's like being out, it's really light. And I think the fish actually then feed at night, so it makes it hard during the day because they're well fed, they don't eat as much. But this time round, we've got a new moon tomorrow. It's a perfect tournament. Like Chris, the Hobie, the team, you guys have chosen the best weekend for fishing here. Like it's high tide coming up, running out. If you're going downriver, it sucks because you've got to go against the tide. But hey, it's 1.4 metres, is it? Over tomorrow, 1.4 metres. It's not full on. It's not going to be hardcore to paddle against. So, but it's a great tide. To answer your question, I don't know. It's going to be a high tide tonight. What is it? 1.7, 1.8 tonight. Around it'll be. I don't know what time it'll be. About 6, 7 o'clock tonight. There'll be about a 1. Is it 1.7? Will the fish be feeding up in the? Yeah, I don't know. What does other people think about that? That's a good. It's a really good question. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Because that's actually a really good question.
Yeah, because it's sort of like you'll come off a high basically at the peak of tonight, but it's going to be dark. So from that aspect, it's not essentially going to affect it as much. But then you come into a shallower high tide tomorrow morning, and a lot of the boats, if you're going to fish those, they're actually in shallow water now.
Yes.
So whether the fish are there or not can be obviously at a high tide there's more coverage for them and more depth for them to hold in.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I think we're going to find that out. I think you're only going to find that out tomorrow, I reckon, over the next couple of days. There'll be people here that are going to go out tomorrow and you're going to own it and you're going to work out how you own it and you'll do it the next day and you'll do really, really well. Providing you stick your hooks. If you're anything like me when I was at Woy, that place, it's such a great fishery, best time of the year to go there, I can't keep a hook in a fish's mouth. I just can't. I don't know, that place has got a spell on me. I love it, but it's got a spell on me. It really does. Cogra Bay, I mean not Cogra Bay, but Georgia River not so much. Yeah. Anyone else? I don't want to hold up because I know Dale is going to talk all things Gyro in a second.
Well, effectively,
Yeah, and I don't want to take up too much of that time, so.
I've got much to say.
Yeah, is there any other questions? Because I know you're probably all hungry and starving too. But if you have any other questions, of course, and you wanted to ask it more on a personal level, whatever, I'm going to hang around, have a chat with me, because you might be. I don't want you to be one of those people. Because I don't know if you're anything like me. When I was young, growing up, I never asked the question because I didn't want to look silly, and because most of the time I probably did. But like, yeah, come and ask a question. I'm happy to answer anything, no problem at all. Otherwise, I'm going to hand over to Dale. Look, thanks heaps for listening. I appreciate it. It's great to have so many of you here to support Hobie, the event over the weekend. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be so much fun. The social side of this, I love it. How good is it? I mean, we've got mates here, we've got people that love what we all love doing. I think it's just fantastic. It's great to be a part of. So, but for now, I'm going to, Dale, it's all yours, mate. Thank you.